All right, and it says we're live. It feels like it's been a while since we've had a Lead with Data episode, and I'm really excited to have Doc on here with me. We've been chatting for months now, hoping to get this live stream going, and here we are. We finally made it. So,
Don't be
with the
too,
count.
don't be too excited, Andrew. He's too ugly for your show. He's too ugly for us.
Oh, yes. Such a great impression. So, hey, would you mind just giving the audience a brief introduction, just a little bit of background of who you are and what you do?
Okay. Andrew seems to be impressed by the fact that I have superpowers. And my superpowers are that I can repair any pinball machine ever manufactured, electromechanical, solid state. It seems like a trivial thing, but the early computers, before vacuum tubes even, used relays, the very same relays that were used in pinball machines, early pinball machines. So I got a grasp of what uh, Boolean logic and hardware. A relay is basically a switch, an on-off switch. A transistor basically is two diodes that are formed to create a gate that's either on or off. They're on-off switches. So my background's in hardware. I do a lot of hardware architecture, semiconductor programming, and I operate mostly at the PHY level. So the OSI PHY level, the hardware level, and that's where I'm comfortable at. So I'm happy when things don't explode, when they don't catch on fire, and when they power up. And so I'm real easy to please. Uh,
And so you work primarily in security applications, right?
And
So,
security applications from the file level, at bit level.
yeah, because usually when I think of cybersecurity, and especially in the context of data, I'm often thinking of, software breaches and things of that nature where somebody somehow gets access to your data through bugs in software. But you're saying you work primarily with security at the hardware level, right?
What happens is in the OSI model, if you don't own the file level, if you don't own the basics of the stack, uh, every other layer above you is compromised. So when you rent somebody else's computer, and meaning the cloud, and you don't have control of your file level, you're basically at their mercy, that they're patching and that they're updating their firmware and that they're vigilant at file level, which for me is a dangerous thing. I would never give my cell phone to anybody, my laptop to anybody, let alone my servers. So I'm a real advocate of owning your own gear.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds like a pretty expensive proposition, though, especially as everybody's trying to get into just using cloud-based software. Or is it not so expensive?
It's not so expensive anymore, and we have Xilinx and AMD, and the drop in storage prices for that. A 2U dual AMD EPIC CPU, a server board with 16 terabytes of onboard DDR4 memory, and gosh, geez, I can put 17 uh, uh, terabytes of NVMe RAM in my palm. Flash storage in my palm. A 2U server with maybe 4 to 6U of storage, and you could spin up 30 to 60,000 VMs, and that would be all your own hardware, and you would have all that massive compute power. It would be all yours, and it's off the cloud. You wouldn't have a
Yeah.
bullseye painted on your back. But yeah, well, I'm just an advocate of owning your own gear. It's if you can't, if you don't understand how to maintain your own computers and servers, there's no way you're going to be able to do it in the cloud because the cloud is a software abstraction layer of hardware function.
Mm,
That's just my personal belief.
yeah,
My this is the way.
this is the way. Well, I one of the things that I connected with you earlier when we were discussing the content for the show, as you mentioned, was this whole pinball sort of introduction to how you got into the engineering and electronics. And one of the reasons why I love you brought up relays is when I was first taking a look at electrical engineering in early high school. I got myself one of those electronics textbooks for college students, and as I was trying to page through it and understand the math, I gravitated towards the digital logic, and I got myself a whole bunch of different relays, right? And I tried to figure out the way to put together a logic system so my high school class could do a Jeopardy, like a buzzer. Everybody had a buzzer, and it would lock people out once the first person went, and would say who came in first, second, third, fourth. Um, so it's always like those very early like relay things that you can get an early start in. That it's kind of interesting all the different places we end up, even though we start at the same spot. So
Yeah,
you
no, absolutely. I agree with you. What happens is a lot of terms we take for granted. Um, bugs, crashes. Um, bugs back in the relay days were actually moths, bugs that would fly into the
literal bugs.
relays. Literal, yeah, yeah, yeah. Beetles and crashes were the sound of the screeching halt of all the relays, and it literally sounded like a train wreck. Uh, You're referring to one of my favorite people of all time. I don't know if it's going to come out reverse
Oh,
shortwave
Boole.
or what. Yeah, um, George Boole. It's not only Boolean logic. Um, uh, he has a incredibly creative mind. I know we're talking about Benford, but it's kind of part and parcel of the same. It's just to empower you to have a kind of a creative insight into problems that other people might approach, just with a standard perspective.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So another thing that you and I connected on pretty early is we both have an interest beyond just the engineering and data and security. We also have an affinity towards the arts. I don't perform, but you have a strong interest in music, right?
Yes, I do. And Andrew, you do perform. Uh, and you did perform, and you found out what a tremendous shock to the body, the abuse that uh, dancing takes, ballet.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I guess if you count the couple of ballet classes I took, maybe that's a performance. But yeah, no, it's an incredible art form for sure.
until you get out on stage, you don't realize how difficult it really is. Pros make it look easy.
Right, right.
Nothing easy about it.
Yeah, and same thing with playing the piano, right? Like a lot of people can sit down and just like play out some of those basic tunes, like maybe even up to for release or something like that. But
Yeah.
once you want to get into some of the more complicated stuff, I forget how far you said you took it in your musical education or practice, but I understand you've got a pretty sophisticated system at your place, right?
Yeah, I have my own recording studio. I use software from Avid, and Avid is the company that provides Hollywood grade software that they used on like making the Lord of the Rings and Avatar and a bunch of other movies. It's very complex, um, uh, but unfortunately, it's an overused crutch in the creative music community these days because
Huh.
99% of the musicians that are popular right now would never be able to perform live. They can't sing on pitch. They can't create a live conversation with other musicians where they're creating space. They don't know how to listen to each other. Uh, all this stuff is corrected in post production nowadays in the recording studio. There's actually a budget allocated for pitch correction.
So
Man,
So in college, my friends and I, we'd have a good time taking existing songs, find a karaoke version of it or whatever, something that still sounds nice, and we would change the lyrics and sing terribly the new lyrics to it. So what you're telling me is if you've got that set up and you can fix pitch, you might be able to help me put out a hit out there that's maybe a data related song.
you'd be a pro field diva, and that's that's doable, and that's actually unfortunately the stage of what passes for artistic creation in music these days is the post production work of perfect harmonics and perfect pitch, and perfect time, quantizing, and we'll talk about music and benefits a lot later, but. I was able to discover why K-pop became such a sensation. Was
Oh yeah?
yeah, they Benfordized electronic dance music, folk, rock, pop, everything, and they ran it through a standard Benford equation in post production, so that all K-pop would be kind of this harmonic, kind of open G, feel good type of chord melody attitude. But yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
Well, I mean, we've mentioned Benford's enough now. Maybe we should go through exactly what Benford's is.
Okay.
Did you want to give a short intro, or shall I pull up a screen here?
Sure, you can pull up a screen. Very simply, Benford's law is
Let's see
a
here.
mathematical certainty that applies to what they call Benford distribution.
Why
And
is
typically, Benford distributions are data sets or data points that have some kind of association with a natural state of of promulgation, meaning it rises from natural conditions. Um, uh, Benford's law applies to Benford distributions absolutely with 100% certainty, and Benford's law does not apply when it's a non-Benford distribution. Uh, for example, uh, the Fibonacci sequence, the value of pi, um, populations in cities, um, classical music. Um, these are all Benford sets, um, and they completely apply. They completely are congruent with Benford's law of numeric distribution. And
Yeah, so we're looking at just like the first digit in a set of numbers,
right,
right? And so I'm not seeing a nice plot of it in here, but I do see a table of it where they're saying here the frequency of the first significant digit. So if you've got the number 1,200, the first number is one, and they're saying if you got a large set of numbers that span a whole bunch of different size different
mm-hmm.
sizes. So anything from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000, you got different orders of magnitude in your data set. You can expect that first digit to be 1 about 30% of the time,
Yeah,
and the
it's like
first digit to be 2 about 17% of the time, 17 and a half.
perfect, perfect. And the way that the Benford distribution goes, a perfect logarithmic arc. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's fine. What happens is the number one will occur in a Benford distribution in a Benford data set over 30% of the time. It's like 30.04. And the number two, as Andrew said, we should have the count chiming in on this.
Yeah.
It's like, two. Can you say two? Two is who is 17.4%. Okay. Um, so with the Benford distribution, as you progress down from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to downwards, the occurrence of that number decreases and decreases. Some people say that nature has a favorite number, and that favorite number is 1, 30.4%, 0.04% of the time. Second favorite is number 2, 17.4% of the time, I think Andrew stated for us. And then it goes on and on. It is spooky how, and I don't mean spooky in the quantum sense of things, uh, that Benford applies to so many things that is it's startling. Um,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen a couple of examples of it in my own work. So I've done
yeah,
some work with Twitter stuff, and if you were to look at a large network of people and look at the number of followers they have in them, once you get rid of things like bots, bot accounts and whatnot, that follower count follows Benford's quite well when you look at the first digit of all the accounts follow counts. Once you
well,
include bots, maybe sometimes you start getting a little away from Benford's, but that's the whole point of it, is detecting some fraud.
absolutely. And I encourage your audience, our friends and colleagues, to really give a look at Dr. Jennifer Goldbeck's paper that Andrew will provide a link to. What
Yeah, I'll
happens?
drop that in the comments now.
Yeah. What Dr. Jennifer Goldbeck did was she took the count of her Twitter followers, and then down at the bottom of her curve of it was just the followers and their connections. She had a group of about 100 accounts that didn't plot correctly, and it turned out that this group of Twitter accounts that didn't plot on Benford's curve of having a Benford numeric distribution with numbers, followers, etc. Turned out to be bot accounts that controlled 175,000 other Twitter accounts.
But,
And yeah, it's like, whoa. And they were mostly, these bot accounts were mostly making short little NPL, they were NLP programs that were doing simple 1 or 2 word Russian phrases, quoting out of textbooks. They would follow and like each other, and so they didn't behave in a Benford manner. And Dr. Goldbeck's work, it's wonderful. She's got the GitHub repository with all her data and example, and it doesn't take you very much time to become a master of social media account fraud detection.
yeah, and I'm going to be posting that link to the GitHub account you mentioned in the comments, at least on LinkedIn, because it seems like it did not do it very well on YouTube when I tried adding it to that one.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, YouTube's kind of strange that way. Hey, Pinky, come here. Let's say hi to the audience. I'll get you. All right, hang on. This is a very, ooh, she's all tangled. Okay,
Whoa.
this is a very valuable
Hey, Pinky.
member of Walker Labs and
That's your business, right?
Walker Labs USA. Actually, it's a shell formation in the Canary Islands that I launder all my money through. But
Oh, okay. All
no,
right.
no,
That's why you know so much about fraud, right?
yeah, right. And I make sure all my data is Benford
Benford.
compliant. Yeah, so don't trigger the IRS, who by the way uses Benford, and
The more you
so
know.
so do criminal forensic experts. They also use Benford to determine if there's money laundering and other criminal activity going. But let's see, say hi, hey Andrew,
Hey, Pinky.
and we lead with data. It's like this guy will
So
go,
is this somewhat of the Pinky and the Brain duo here?
oh no. If anybody was the brains, it'd be Pinky. She has me. She has me well trained. I mean, that's what. Okay, hang on.
Yeah,
I
I,
gotta
I have
just.
a I have a few dogs myself, and I'd agree with you there, Doc. I think sometimes I'm more trained by them than they are by me.
Oh yeah, it's like it's so funny. Yeah, we'll stick with data, but yeah, we could do a whole show on dogs.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Jennifer Goldbeck, Dr. Goldbeck from the University of Maryland, the Benford's Law paper and the GitHub repository she's put up. She has three golden retrievers that have their own um, Twitter account. I think it's like
Oh,
75 or 175,000 followers.
wow.
And, yeah, damn. It's so funny. Yeah, I was thinking about doing a LinkedIn a
A
LinkedIn
Pinky
profile,
LinkedIn profile.
but what happens is I'll violate the uh, ELUA or LinkedIn by putting an animal up. So
Uh,
I might be able to get away with it on Facebook, but I'll never return to that
well, I
SWAT
have a
cat.
bunch of people in the performing arts industry that I'm working with a lot, and
Uh-huh.
there's this idea from Instagram where you have sort of your professional Instagram account and then you have your personal Instagram account. They're like bifurcating their personality a little bit, right? And so there's been a bunch of discussion amongst that group of people about how to work on LinkedIn since they're so used to splitting up their performing arts life and then the rest of their life. They say, should we have two LinkedIn profiles because that's how where we do it everywhere else? But as you mentioned, that's the end user license agreement
Yeah,
says you can only have one and it's got to be about you.
yeah,
So
they're I'm not gonna argue with them. That's their language, their platform, and I'll just leave it at that. But let's
well, if you
see.
do get a pinky one up there, I'll make sure I get my dog Erie on it because she's been training to be a service dog, but she's now been selected to be in the breeding program for
Oh,
Paws with a Cause. So now we got her back instead of, having to say goodbye forever. And maybe one day she'll bring about a few litters of future service dogs.
I was really surprised with the Pets for Vets program that I went through with Pinky. It was like a year long. She's the signal animal, and she helps. She was invaluable for me dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder for combat in Kuwait, and she would be able to tell a paranoid schizophrenic, the people on the streets that talk to themselves, they yell and all that. She'd see them coming like from 2 blocks away, and she would alert. She ruff, ruff, and I would know that eyes up, danger close, contact forward. So I think he's been a wonderful partner in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad there's programs like that because it always surprises me the capabilities that dogs have to be able to do so many different services from the stuff that you were just describing to basic like mobility issues, anxiety, and even like seizure response and stuff
Ah,
like that. Like and bomb detection. We had one that we trained that's now doing bomb detection. We don't know where because they don't tell us that stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
their noses are incredible.
Yes, and yeah, some incredible things that dogs are doing too, are with cancer detection. And and you already mentioned they know when a seizure is coming on, and invaluable. The medical devices have yet to catch up to what some medical service can provide.
Yeah, I was just seeing an article. We'll have to get back to Benford's after this, otherwise
Oh,
people
we
are
will.
like, "You misled us with the title. You're talking about dogs instead of
No, we got
Benford's."
all kinds of it.
But I just saw an article. I think it was yesterday, where someone using AI was and some specialized hardware was actually starting to get close to the sensitivity of a dog's nose. But I'm guessing that's probably in a couple of very narrow, narrow use cases as opposed to the generality of a dog's nose.
Let's say laboratory controlled situations.
Right, right,
But
yes.
getting back to Benford, um, so many conferences that I've gone to with AI, with hardware development, both on the software and neural network side of things. They always end with the same uh, conclusion. To find a better way, we need to look to nature for the
Mm,
answer. And I mean, it's really profound. And what happens is Benford is a natural distribution, a numeric distribution that occurs in the natural world. Um, you think of the value pi, um, and what are the first three digits of pi? 3.14,
3.141.
141. Okay, and so wait a second. And that would mean one occurs 50% of the time, not 30.4. Your sample is too small. Right? Bad example. But
No, but you need a large enough data set, right? So if we did a
exactly,
thousand digits of pi, right?
exactly. It would be a Benford distribution, Benford set. And there aren't, pi is very beautiful in that nature really doesn't have too many straight lines.
Yeah. Well, now we're getting into fractal stuff, right?
No, yeah, that's my another thing about Mandelbrot sets. People tried to fracture geometry into Euclidean geometry and non-Euclidean geometry, and I really think that there is uh, no difference between the two uh, because how can they would classify the transcendental value of pi as a Euclidean geometric feature when it really isn't.
Hmm.
But well, we can talk about getting back to Benford. Benford,
It's
okay, only applies to the Benford distributions. So unnatural distributions like let's just say phone numbers um,
mm,
would not uh, 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 comport to Benford numeric distribution. It's a synthetic random generation of numbers. Typically, any function that involves any kind uh, of life, living process, or a reflection of any kind of living organism in the generation of the numeric value will be a Benford distribution. The spooky thing are things like attachments, the heavily used by all the tax agencies in the world, the governments, because it can spot fraud.
yeah.
Uh, yep. What happens is when you deviate from uh, your when your finances deviate from a Benford distribution, there's intentional manipulation. And another area that Benford's law and that Benford distribution comes into very, very accurate use is to detect voter fraud.
Mm.
And lots of political scientists have studied, like let's say the old election with Gore v. Bush, where Gore won the popular vote, but Bush won the electoral college with Florida. And they did a thorough Benford analysis on the uh, to detect any kind of vote tampering, and it was a completely legitimate. It was there was a less than 1% deviation uh, from the Benford expected Benford distribution.
Yeah, and that's a great application of it because you have all these different size counties or reporting
Right,
groups, right? So if you have like 100 in this one over here, but then somewhere in California, probably around the San Francisco area, you've got, orders of magnitude more than that.
right,
You're spanning a bunch of different orders of magnitude. You've got a lot of different reporting centers, so you've got a large data set. It
right.
would be a really great first line of defense for detecting fraud to run it through and see if it follows Benford's, which in this case it did.
It did, and this was these aren't studies that are run by people with any kind of political agenda. These are political scientists just wanting to see if Benford's law applied or not, and there were a lot of congruent, peer-reviewed uh, publications where, in the Gore v. Bush election, there was a less than 1% deviation from the expected Benford numeric distribution. And then even with Biden v. Trump, they're finding that there's no deviance from the expected Benford distribution of voting results, which is reassuring,
Yeah,
because unfortunately, 40% of our country believes that the president election, this past election, was rigged, and some kind of foul play was going on. But the election results were fine.
yeah,
No fraud detection.
yeah. And these tools, especially these first line of defense tools like the Benford's law, are relatively easy to apply too. I mean, it's almost literally counting up and looking at the first digit of a large data set. I ran this recently on one of my projects at work where we've got essentially stores across the United States selling, a bunch of different stuff. And we want to look at sales volume, reported sales volume for each of
Mhm.
these places. And we've got this history over years and years of their sales. And yeah, you can run numbers like that through it because we've got very small stores selling specialty things, and we've got
Yeah.
large stores that just push product out like nothing else. So you've got the scale, and you've got the size of the data set, and sure enough, all of those sales followed Benford's law very,
Well,
very, very closely.
you have a clean company, and good employees and good record keeping, because what happens is one of the first things that the forensic accountants will do is do a Benford analysis that will reveal quite starkly, just like Jennifer Goldbeck odd accounts, bot accounts at the bottom of her plot. They will detect stores, or even as granular as people that may need to be looked at because they deviate from Benford distribution with either their accounting or their
Yeah.
inventory.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
no,
one of the reasons why I bring that particular example up is because it's easy to also misapply Benford's in that case. If you were to look at like if all of the products, say like in a grocery store, are within a narrow range of values, right? Like if you're looking at the produce,
Right.
there's not a whole lot of different orders of magnitude and price there. So if you were to just try to apply that to the produce stuff, you're not necessarily going to find Benford's law applying. But if
Right.
you aggregate across all the products being sold and you roll that up into a sum and compare that all the way across, sure enough, then it's going to show up more than likely if you've got good practices, or if you were to just count the number of items sold as opposed to looking specifically at the price of the items sold.
Did someone say count? Count?
I absolutely loved the image that you put on your post announcing this show. I have no idea where you found that, but it makes me crack up every single time seeing the
It's
count.
the artist responsible for that. There was a big uproar in this past election with Biden v. Trump, and Trump made a deliberate effort to stop counting votes, and he said, "Stop the count." And there was this uproar, first from Sesame Street, and their official Twitter uh, feed that says you can't stop the count. And then it just grew from there. And that poster, that image is part of a poster that says count every vote.
Yeah.
He's a bastard to the, I mean, the count is, he's a publicity hound. Loves his publicity.
Yeah.
I met him in the 12-step program for blood
Oh
sucking.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, ex attorneys, vampires, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah, we
Oh.
were all there. Yeah.
Yeah, that there is a an assumption out there, right? I've got a number of lawyers in my family. I've heard that term come up a few times as well, who had also left the legal field. So that's also just a really interesting additional piece of background that you have coming through from electronics and then focusing on security, data, hardware, and then having some of that legal background. I think you did stuff with like product liability and intellectual property and stuff with that.
Yeah, I do. I did. I have 9 years of formal law school, a BA. At first, my ABA paralegal certification, my BA in law, and my JD from Purdue University. Um, Practiced law for about 10 years and didn't, let's just say I drank a lot. Man, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay. The drinking was more of a symptom than the cause. And getting back to engineering, getting back to root cause analysis, it was a horrible experience for me. I didn't practice any criminal law, but civil law, to go into court with clients day after day and have to bill them. And the wheels of justice turn very, very slowly,
Mm.
and it's sad to see a customer bleed out from uh, just running out of money in their legal war chest because insurance companies can just stall them, or a large company. Well, we're talking insurance policies at this point, um, where they will just wait you out till you run out of money, and it let's say didn't make me feel like a very good human being,
Yeah.
and having to take all of my clients' money for that. The pro bono thing didn't work because I'd have my power shut off and the eviction notice on my door. If I wasn't billing for professional
Right.
services,
Right.
and but it's a good background into it's a wonderful education to help you think in language.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember when we were talking about your lawyer experience in the past, there was one really interesting
Oh,
tidbit about just trying
being
to
a bastard,
get. Say what?
being a bastard.
Oh,
Talking
well,
about the one where
I
I
was gonna
pulled
say the
out.
email, trying to get that entered in
Oh,
as legal evidence and all of the data that you need to just be able to put that in. I'm sure
oh,
that sort of background gives an appreciation to all of like the technical aspects that go into just communication over the internet and being able to prove that something is verifiably sent from one person to another person and wasn't altered along the way, which is
right.
maybe a little bit more on the, excuse me, software side of data security, but I'm guessing there's probably a significant amount of hardware in proving that
It,
stuff as
it
well.
is actually a lot of a typical email, whether it's one paragraph or multiple pages, will involve about anywhere from 15 to 30 pages of uh, of the records you need to subpoena from your ISP and from your MSP, that starts from the origination of the message all the way to the destination, including all the all the where the packets were switched, to what routers, at what nodes, the size of the email, the checksum, and the hash signature, and everything else to make sure it wasn't altered. And establishing that forensic foundation is tedious at best, and just it's grueling. Um, when you talked about the lawyer thing, I thought you were going to bring up that thing about the ballet, where
Oh no.
okay, well, we'll say that for another time.
Yeah.
Well, in brief, what I did was opposing counsel was moving her feet in first position, second position, third position, and I could tell that she was formerly trained in ballet. And I watched it for weeks and weeks, and I sprung it on her right before a critical evidentiary motion that shocked her, and it was intentional. I was a son of a bitch, and that's what lawyers do. Is you just
Get you off your feet, right? They move the ground on you to make you feel unsteady.
what you do is yeah, you fire for effect, and if you have something on a opposing counsel, the judge, or a witness, you save to detonate that when it is going to do the maximum or have maximum effect. But yeah, well, getting back to cyber forensics, yes, it's very difficult. And here's another interesting application of Benford. When you take a photograph with your phone or with any digital camera, you have an analog picture, and then you take a picture, and then it's pixelized. And believe it or not, that's a Benford distribution. And what happens is when you Photoshop it or compress it or alter it, you distort the Benford distribution. So Benford can be used, the Benford distribution and Benford's law can be used to detect deepfake, photo image manipulation, and also sound manipulation that with sound files that are in digital format, because natively the JPEG or the image will the pixel distribution will be a pure Benford distribution. And the more you
Ah.
compress it and more you manipulate it, the farther you deviate off of the Benford origin of the original picture. And that is another area where Benford is very, very successfully applied and accepted by the court of law as evidence of image
Tampering, huh?
tampering.
I wonder if that's what David Knickerbocker was working on. I saw him post recently about looking for Python libraries for messing around with audio stuff, and he's mentioned using the audio component and natural language processing to detect some of this sort of deep fake video and audio and stuff of that nature. So we'll have to circle back with him and see if he's going to be applying Benford's to it.
I love David Knickerbocker. One of the uh, the things that David does in his philosophy with data science is that sometimes simpler models that are straight to the point are more um, effective and accurate than very very complex convoluted uh, uh, programming. Um, and obviously, simple models run faster. But
Yeah,
and I really like that philosophy of being able to reduce complexity
right.
uh, to let's say just try to eliminate complexity and keep things simple when you can. And Benford is once you grasp it, it seems like a simple concept. Okay, numeric distribution, one occurs 30.04% of the time, two, 17.4% of the time. And then it lower and lower as you go through the numeric scale. That seems like a simple thing, but the applications depend on the creativity of the beholder of the tool of the Benford tool.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, this we're already past the 40-minute point, which is what I try to target. But it's so much fun talking with you, Doc. This makes it so easy, and we had so many different tangents that we could easily pick up on another one of these. But I do want to thank you so much for bringing Benford's law into this. It's something I messed around with just a little bit in the past, but since you bring it up, I've been looking at it a whole bunch more, and I
Spooky,
tell you,
isn't it?
it is such a spooky and cool tool that is so easy to use and finds application in, like you said, anywhere from music to accounting to digital imagery to sales to you name it. It's just
Fraud
all over
detection,
the place. Fraud detection.
and people screwing or cooking their books, fraud
Yeah.
detection in image manipulation, fraud detection in video compression. It's There's a lot of different ways you can go. And thank you for bringing up David Knickerbocker. He's one of my heroes.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was really great having him on the show, and I think he's the one that actually got you and me connected. So we'll have to thank him
yeah.
for that too. But yeah, if you'll just hang out for just a moment, I'm gonna end the stream,
Sure.
and then we can do a quick debrief. But thank you, audience, for tuning in. Hopefully, you learned a little bit about the Benford set and the Benford's law and how you can apply it to all sorts of different stuff. And I'd love to hear how you've applied it to your work. So let us know. Thanks for joining in, and thanks, Doc.
No, my pleasure.